Thank you.
Before we get started,
Do you want me to do a sound check?
I need this
The,
monitor turned on for closed captions.
we still have to figure out how to get the captions to read Yukon with a U and a C instead of a Y and a U.
Is there a power button here somewhere?
You excuse me 1 minute. I made coffee and I forgot to bring it to my seat.
Okay.
One creamer? One, please. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the April 10th budget workshop on the budget, obviously. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And Ms. Chain, in your elegant office, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Bruder, Coleman,
Here.
Cotton,
Here.
Kiefner,
Here.
Latrico, Moran,
Here.
Shuren,
Here.
Shaken, Temeko.
Here.
Thank you.
I believe we may have some members joining who are not here at the moment, joining virtually. All right, the first item on the agenda is staff reports and communications.
The only reporter communication I would offer is just to make sure that the council, I'm sure you're all checking your email diligently, but there is an updated version of the flagged items document that again will review in more detail on the designated flagged items night, but just want to make sure you're seeing those updated versions as they come to you before the budget workshops.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, then let's proceed directly to budget review. And the first topic is the Board of Education. And I see we have a large number of Board of Education members. Welcome. Welcome to the chair, Kathy Ward, and welcome to the superintendent, Peter Dart.
So just got 2 or 3 slides before we get to our distinguished guests. So yeah, tonight we're going to be covering Mansfield Public Schools shared services, which obviously we share with Mansfield Public Schools and some other entities, and then our management services fund. So with respect to tonight, we'll be focusing our discussion on that large navy blue wedge, as well as a subset of it's kind of a, unfortunately, this wedge kind of mixes DPW and facilities, but that khaki colored wedge, which is labeled Public Works, but for the purposes of the pie chart, that's where facilities management lives. And then same orientation when we talk about capital projects tonight. It'll basically be, I guess I can use my cursor here. It'll be this wedge, and then also this is a IT, move this over here. So this red wedge here, a little over $1 million, and then $100,000 in education technology capital projects. Okay, so now without any further ado, I would in fact like to turn the microphone over to our superintendent of schools and the chair of our school board.
Okay, well, good evening, Mayor, Town Council, Town Manager. Honor and privilege to serve the community and Mansfield Board of Education, and most importantly, our schools and our students. As you know, a budget is the work of many, and I just want to share gratitude to my team. I know I have 2 people from my staff here, Director of Teaching and Learning, Candace Morrell, and Director of Talent Management, HR, Michelle Beers. They, along with the finance team, especially Amanda, has been just so very helpful. And then this couldn't happen without the visionary leadership of our board chair and our board members who are also here present. So I want to thank Kathy Ward and our other board members who are in attendance, April Morin, Sabrina Hosmer, and Edith. Thank you. Sorry. And so with that, we're going to dig in and I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. We really appreciate it. And I just want to echo what Peter said about a thank you to his team, to our finance director, Amanda, and the central office staff for all of the work that they did. Very, very thoughtful. The board takes credit, but it's really not the board. It's their work that really drives this, and greatly appreciated. And you do an awesome job for our kids, our families, and our town. So thank you. So thank you for allowing us to present our proposed 24-25 district budget. We're quite pleased with what our superintendent, his team, our finance director have developed. I'm going to make a few remarks and then turn it over to Superintendent Dart for a more detailed explanation. Just as an organization budget reflects its priorities, our core beliefs, which I don't think you can see up there, represent what our values are. These statements are the focus of our development plan, and coupled with three key drivers, our strategies of knowing students, supporting the whole child, and ensuring deep learning, we can target and advance the work to bring our core beliefs to life. Our budget is responsive to what we know about our students, our staff, and our families, and we use data to ensure that we have funds to support our needs. Our return on our investment Thank you. Our district continues to be recognized for teaching excellence. Once again, we had a semifinalist for State Teacher of the Year, History Day Teacher of the Year, 4 educators awarded fellowships for summer work abroad, School Counselor, Supervisor of the Year recognition, as well as other state and national recognitions. Our superintendent and his staff have been invited to present at state and national conferences that showcase the innovative work being done in the Mansfield Public Schools. Our students continue to shine at events such as History Day and on the athletic field. And as you can see by the graph down below, our learners continually outperform other districts on statewide assessments. Our proposed 24-25 budget is $24.8 million. That's a 0% increase over the current year. Due to efficiencies and cost savings, superintendent and his team were able to keep this budget flat after working diligently to keep our costs in check while maintaining the depth and breadth of our programs. I commend Peter and his team for recognizing a 0% budget was a possibility and then making it happen. Now I'll ask Peter to give you more particulars on budget specifics.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. Knowing that we have that North Star, it's easy to build a budget knowing that our core values are so strong and that our development plan is based on that. Coming in at 0 was by no accident. It was a budgeting strategy that we set our target. We feel very fortunate to be in a supportive community that is well-resourced. We benefit from the consolidation of 3 elementary schools, and we continue to right-size the district. We did that, though, in spite of some just known challenges. We know that we had over $900,000 salary benefit increases, and that salary and benefits represent 85% of our budget. While we kept transportation steady, it's still 5% of our total budget. In order to offset the known increases in collective bargaining and healthcare costs and just inflation, we looked at many non-salaried costs that we could mitigate and reduce. But we also looked at not filling positions that through attrition had been opened and not needed. And so again, right-sizing the district is making strategic decisions at the right time to recognize the consolidation of our district, but also, more importantly, ensure that the quality and level of services and programs remains the same. I often talk about budgets can be innovative, but also fiscally responsible. Budgets can be creative and show reductions. That it doesn't mean when you're building a budget that you have to see continued increases, that you can continue to develop programs. And I'm very excited about the innovative work that we're doing and bringing to you tonight a zero-based budget that is flat in spite of known increases. So traditionally, we look at our spreadsheet rather than the graph version of this. And I think this is an important table to see Because when you look at the 24-25 budget and go to the operating expenses, you'll see where we see a lot of those cost saving mitigating strategies lie. We also offset the increases in obligated salaries and healthcare through a reduction in staff that I'll talk about. The declining enrollment in Mansfield Public Schools is not unique to our area. It is being experienced across Connecticut and the country as well. And we are reflecting our staffing plan based on the needs of our students. So we were able to reduce a total FTE of our teachers by 4.85. Looking at the positions that were reduced were through attrition. Again, we did not lay anyone off. We took advantage of retirements coming through. And then there were some vacancies last year that we just did not fill because we didn't need them. So kindergarten, first grade, we see decline in enrollments, so we can make reductions there. 0.6 art teacher, that was in addition to 1.0 that we already had, and through scheduling, we did not need to fill that position. Elementary music, this is a strings part-time position that we were able to fill with a new strings teacher last year. In the middle school, the 8th and 6th grade teams, again, due to reduction, 8th grade had 7 teachers and is going down to 6. 6th grade will have the smallest cohort that we have in the district, and that'll go down to 5. And I'll show you class size projections in a second. And then through declining and reduced needs and projected enrollment, we were able to reduce a special ed teacher, again, through attrition. We are adding, this is part of the innovative creative part of it, meeting the needs of kids. We know that in the middle school, we are still accelerating learning, closing the gap of learning loss from the pandemic. Principal Barlow and his team recognize that we need additional supports for students who need to close that gap. And so they asked for a full-time intervention and instructional coach that will work with students and staff. So the 4.8 is the total. And then in our paraeducator budget, 4.5 paraeducators were simply just unfilled vacancies from last year. Anytime that we need additional support, we know that we have funds that we can use, and there is contingency money just in case enrollment spikes. That is somewhat of a wild card, but however, we have many years of a 10-year projected enrollment study. And so we feel confident with it, but we also know that it only takes a couple families to move in to change some of the numbers, and that we wanted to make sure that that contingency would allow us to hire a teacher if we needed to, or paraeducators if we needed to. Here's the projected enrollment and class size chart. This is something that the Board of Ed monitors very closely. I give them updates throughout the summer, opening of school, October 1st, we have to file our enrollment reports. And then again, we just monitor as we go throughout the year. This bottom line here, this bottom row, are the Board of Education guidelines. And you'll see all grade levels are within the Board of Education guidelines, with the exception of 3rd grade for next year. They're up by 1 student outside of the 14 to 18. Traditionally, what we've done when we find that we're a little over the projection, we look at the needs of that cohort, we talk to the teachers, and we often add additional supports. It wouldn't always make sense to hire a teacher because then you're creating just smaller class sizes. And this is a cohort that has worked together in 2nd grade. And so those kids are just simply matriculating up 6 classes into 6 classes. And then finally, my last slide of the night, this is a question we hear often in our budget, that the community expects to see savings. And so we talk about the efficiencies due to the consolidation of schools. We see that immediately in the reduction of overall ride times with students who ride the bus. The reduction in staffing is not because of retirement, it's because of retirement and the lack of need, because there was so much redundancy with 3 small schools. as we consolidate, we can also consolidate and reduce staff. We've seen decreases in energy costs, and probably the most important cost saving is really cost avoidance. We need to remind ourselves that just a couple of years ago, we were looking at 3 aging buildings that we had done a study, and it was estimated to be over $20 million of capital needs improvement projects to keep those buildings functioning and updated and in good order. So while cost avoidance won't appear on any line in a budget, it's real. And actually, just the other day, I had a chance to visit one of the older schools and was reminded of the many challenges that we had in those older facilities. So while we won't see that line in our budget, it's a real savings that is supporting our community. And with that, I would turn it back to the town manager and town council, the mayor. No. Sorry.
Questions for the superintendent and for the chair? Mr. Shuren.
Thank you very much. I noticed there's a reduction of 1 special ed teacher due to attrition. Question, if we didn't make that reduction, are there any desirable things that we would have been able to do that we're not going to be able to do? If we kept the number of special ed teachers the same?
I see. And still achieve a zero-based budget?
Well,
because
that's
that
another
might-
question.
yeah,
So,
so-
yeah, it's a separate question.
So, these things happen kind of in concert with one another.
Yes,
And so when we started to look at the forecasts of our needs, of our wishes and wants, and so no, for example, we are able to build out a brand new Lego robotics lab next year. That's a new program that will appear in the elementary school. That's innovative. It has a decent price tag to it, yet we're still able to do that. Would there have been other projects that we would have wanted to do?
or other services to.
Other services? No, there's not. We've not reduced the level of services programs for students. And in fact, if anything, we continue to build on them and grow them.
Would you have been able to add to them more, not reducing? I appreciate the budget concern.
yeah.
This is a separate question.
I guess I'm not following it.
Yeah.
If I clarify your question in
I
terms of.
think he's asking for a wish list.
Well, no, I'm not really asking for a wish list. I'm just asking basically, should we have kept, if we should have kept the level of special ed teachers the same rather than taking the attrition loss that we did for budget purposes? Are there things that we would have been able to do for the kids in needs of special services?
Got it. Okay. If we retain that position,
Yeah.
we would have an extra
Right.
special educator.
Exactly.
What would we do with them and what could we do?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Well, no, because there's an appropriate caseload that we have in both of our schools. We have case managers who are special educators, and we have to be careful of having too many staff members work with small groups because we're an included district. We know the best thing for kids is to be supported in the included classroom. And the temptation when you're overstaffed is to overstaff programs and over provide or over service, if you will. And so having an N number of a certain number of students in a classroom is important. There is such a thing as being too small and not being appropriate to meet the level. And so I'm not aware of anything that we could be doing that we're not going to do with that extra person.
Mr. Kiefner.
Would you be able to, who's ever controlling this, can we go back to the first slide? I just have a few questions on, yeah, let's just start there. Okay, now go forward. I just didn't know exactly where it was. There it is. What is the Orton Gillingham Certified Leader?
Yes. That's a
Program.
very impressive certification. It's a rigorous program with a very high level standard that requires rigorous professional learning and assessments and an internship where people who are in the program are working with kids, reporting back. It is a reading program strategy. Typically, ONG certified teachers are working intensively with students who have reading deficits, dyslexia, specific reading disabilities. And it's not a program that's good for all kids, but for some kids who need that intensive type of instruction, it's great to have in the back pocket. It adds to our constellation of services and supports that we have on staff.
And is this something that the district pays to have teachers become certified in, or do we give the teachers a merit increase of any sort? or
Not a merit increase. All of our pay is through collective bargaining. However, this is professional learning, and so we offset the costs of pursuing the certification by supporting their participation in the program.
And it's something that happens outside of school hours and sometimes interrupts them?
This would be additional to their teaching
Okay.
responsibilities, yes.
Okay, thank you for that one. On the bottom of this is the district versus the state, and it's, as I've seen, generally customary to compare to like schools rather than the entire state. How do we, or like districts, how do we compare to like districts? I see, just using these numbers, whatever they may be, 78, I'm looking at the last number on the right,
Right.
82 and 83. How would we have ranked?
So
rated?
we report to the Board of Education during a report of progress of no students. That's when we have the summary data from our assessments and from state assessments. We're a leader in the region and very proud of our students accomplishing a high level of performance. We particularly look at our immediate region, knowing that our kids matriculate into Region 19. And so we're attuned to following the child into that program, wanting to make sure they're successful. And so that's first and foremost on a lot of our minds. And then regionally, we do very well as we compare our district to other similar districts.
So do you have any idea what the numbers are? And
Not off the
similar
top of my
districts?
head.
Okay.
no.
All right. I think there were a couple more. Can you go forward again? What was this one? No, okay, keep going, and one more. Yeah, this one, actually, you answered the question. But it made me curious along the way here. Does the Board of Ed have the ability to hold over money from the prior year that you did not? Amanda's shaking her head.
No.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so when you save, so when I see this thing like kindergarten teacher reduced 23-24, it seems as if we already reduced that, and we're really not reducing 5.85, but we're reducing 4.85, which means a net reduction of 3.85. Is that the case, or what's really?
Well, you
me
can look at it
understand.
two different ways. If you were to grab our budget book from last year, which was constructed in January, actually before
And
that, point,
accounted
it
to
had
have a
that
full-
in there.
Okay,
And so to be transparent and apples to apples, we had to put it in here, but you are correct. We did not have that 0.6 art teacher filled last year, so it was vacant the entire year.
okay. And what happens to that money? Do you transfer it to other uses along the year, throughout the year?
So yes, and again, Amanda can certainly weigh in. But the Board of Ed Finance Committee has quarterly reports. We do an end of the year financial report early fall, September, because that's enough time to close the books. And we make requests to the town council to appropriate some of the monies. They've generously often supported our request, and so we're able to reallocate those funds.
Great, okay. Can you go ahead again? You are controlling this? Go ahead, another one. This is the one. This cost avoidance, the sentence there, or without the period, cost avoidance based on needed. Are those dollar amounts only talking about the capital improvement cost avoidance, or are they also talking about energy costs and
They
Capital
were
improvement.
based on capital improvement
just
projects.
capital? So we are in addition to that, actually enjoying savings in energy.
In energy, that's correct.
And in particular, it's the one I keep kind of think of. I'm totally amazed by the reduction in overall ride times. In one way amazed, in another way not, because I know that Kelly had put a tremendous amount of effort into planning that, and your contractor did as well, your advisor. But that's a great news that the overall time. So what I'm reading on that is that on average, a student spends less time on the bus than had been the case in the
That's
past.
correct.
That's
yes.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what the percentage of kids is that actually use the transportation that's provided?
Oh, I have Candace Morel, who's Director of Teaching and Learning, but I've titled her the Czar of Transportation.
Just in your head is fine. Say what percent?
And the answer was at least
80%.
80%.
Take the bus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll share this. When we opened up the building, we had 2 rows of family drop off and well over 100 cars. When those cars were still dropping off, picking up, and buses were rolling past them, we saw families realizing that public transportation is actually a great sustainable environmental move, and it's efficient. And so within a relative short period of time, the family pickup drop-off line has dropped considerably, and ridership way up.
And last question. What surprises have turned up that you didn't expect with respect to budget and the new building? In any area at all?
I don't know if it's a surprise because I think we anticipated efficiencies. And so we continue to see them. I think the surprise is how quickly enrollment declining is a factor in this. While we predicted that enrollment was going to decline, all projections were very slight and slow. And so there were no real sharp declines that we would think we're actually going to have to reduce sections. But now seeing that, it allows us some wiggle room in order to grow programs. I tell people we built the new elementary school like adults buy shoes, that they fit perfectly with no extra room. You're not going to grow into them.
Good example.
But now with attrition and with some enrollment declines, we can shift and grow other things that we didn't anticipate,
Like socks.
like socks.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Coleman?
Thank you, Superintendent Dart. Appreciate a zero increase budget, of course. And I want to thank every member of the Board of Ed for all the hard work they do as well. If you could go back to that cost avoidance slide. Okay. This is cost avoidance is based on 3 older buildings, right? And we were able to raise one of those buildings and get rid of the Southeast Elementary School, so that's not a headache. But I'm not sure how much avoidance the town is receiving by holding on to the 2 older buildings. I just want to recognize that, but I appreciate the work that you did in the slides you have here, but we're still paying for those buildings. We got to keep the heat on, the electric on and all that and try to rent them and probably mothball them as well. I just want to make everybody aware of that. Also, there's a fund called Special Revenue Fund for the Board of Education. Where is that in your budget? Is that showing in the budget?
The special reserve funds are not in the budget.
Yeah. How do we represent that to the taxpayer as we spend them down or?
I'm going to turn that over to Amanda.
So the Board of Ed has several special reserves that are included in the town's other operating fund, and they're reported quarterly in the town's quarterly reports, annually in the town's annual audit, and they're also monitored by the Board of Education on a quarterly basis when I meet with the Finance Committee. We use those throughout the budgeting process and include those funds as offsets in Peter's budget to help reduce the impact to taxpayers.
Do we pull out of them? Looks like they this particular one with 953,481,000 has, appears not to be drawn down in any way, or?
It should be. If it hasn't been yet, it will be by the end
Yeah,
of the year. We
and
do
I'm
allocate that
Sorry
each
if I
year.
missed it. Now, where's that actually go in the Board of Ed?
It's an offset to the tuition line,
To the
the-
what?
tuition,
Okay, yeah,
the outplacement tuition.
okay, thank you.
And if I
And
may
what is,
follow
and
up.
what is the source of the funds in that line?
Very often, the finance committee will make the recommendation at the end of the year if there are funds that have not been spent to seed those reserved accounts. So there's two in particular, one for tuition, and that is special education reserve funds. We know that very quickly we can have situations where students may require a specialized program. Because of federal and state law, we're required to make those recommendations and then fund them. I know of colleagues in smaller districts where, one or two students requiring such specialized programs can devastate a budget. We're very fortunate to have this kind of rainy day reserve fund so that we can maintain our budgets without the fear of having to do a budget freeze. The finance committee often asks about these funds. They monitor it carefully, and we're developing a policy around when is too much in the reserved account. So we want just enough, and Amanda actually has some draft ideas that the board will be looking at. The other one is for the middle school. We know that we have capital improvement needs. We now have a demand to really look at the middle school building through the lens of 21st century learning. And so we have scholars who are used to the new $50 million facility and expecting some of the same upgraded features. And so we want to, over time, pay as we go, invest in that building. The bones are great. And we feel like we can slowly build out over the next 3 to 5 years, practically a new building by just investing in the current structure. And I know Bill and facilities team might talk a little more about that part of it.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Mr. Tomeko?
Is there a cafeteria fund for the food stuff for the kids? That is not listed in here?
That's a great question. So food service, which normally is not in our budget, it's a separate financial component, has its own budget, and it's self-funded. However, we are obligated to cover negative balances. There's been a lot of conversation with the benefits of free and universal meals that have been provided during the pandemic. Right now, any student can have a free breakfast, and any student who qualified for free and reduced lunches would automatically be free. That is not a forever and a guaranteed. So we know there may be times when we need to cover the balances because we want to make sure that students do not have food insecurities, that they're not hungry, that they're fed. So we are setting up a reserve account to make sure that we cover those balances. The board in the past has always honored that, but through Amanda's leadership, we'll create a new reserved account just to make sure that we have those funds each and every year to cover the negative balances should we need to.
Any other questions? I have a question. Could
You have
go
two
back to
questions
the-
on Zoom, Tony.
Oh,
Two.
I'm sorry. Who's on Zoom? Oh, all right. Who went first? Who raised their hand first?
Sam.
Sam, go ahead. Mr. Bruder.
Thank you. Mine was less of a question, more just a opportunity to, as a parent with twins in the middle school and had a lot of children go through the Mansfield school system. It continues to be impressive. I really appreciate all the hard work that the Board of Education members and town staff have done to bring us this budget. It's very comprehensive. It's obviously taken into account a lot of moving parts and just very much thank you for your presentation tonight. All of it.
Thank you.
Mr. Shaken.
Thanks. I have a question maybe for Kathy. On although I guess either of you maybe could field it. So I've been on the council a while, and you can't quote me exactly on this, but it seems to me that every year the board presents a budget that's pretty much completely flat. Like, and this one is to the dollar, the same amount as it was last year. Now that we've got the new building open, outside of capital expenses, I just came, for example, from the first sort of like almost school-wide concert there, which was really awesome. Has the board put any thought into sort of future potential expansions in the budget? I know the budget itself is traditionally generally flat because while your expenses increase, your student population has been sort of steadily declining, and so you're able to kind of balance things out. But has the board given thought to service expansions with budgetary impacts, or is there still a thought that it makes sense to continue to try to get in as close to neutral as you can?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Ben, but I'm going to give it a shot here. Are you saying that we prioritize having a flat budget for the sake of new programming?
No, I was more saying I'm just curious if now that we've got the building open and we're sort of operating under full power again, given that we spent the last couple of years sort of under construction, and then before that or during that and before that was COVID, has the board thought about like, okay, are there new programming, new investments, more things that we could do that we're not doing right now that we might be looking for in the future that might have sort of budget expansion implications rather than sort of neutrality?
I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. I think it really goes back, Ben, to the middle school. We need to invest in a building that's really supporting 21st century learning, that has the flexibility, the breakout space. We have a cafeteria serving line that's very outdated. And I think as we see and evolve our understanding of teaching and learning in the 21st century with the use of technology and breakout areas and project-based learning, that I think the emphasis should be and appropriately will be looking at how to invest in that building to make that work and to update it. In terms of educational programs, we're a very innovative district, and we're growing all the time. And so like the new Lego robotics lab that will open up in September, we're constantly looking at those ideas and inspirations to grow them out, but grow them out in a authentic way. Sometimes, and we felt this with the ARP ESSER grant, that a lot of money all at once is a hard thing. I think that we're going to be steady and restrained in our ask. Again, we want to make sure that our community is appreciative of what we're doing, and that we are appreciative of the new building for the elementary school, but wanting to make those strategic decisions when the time is right to invest in the middle school.
Yeah, thanks. And my other question was about the ARP ESSER funds. So I'm sure they had a major impact in the programming in the school system, but they are going away, or they have already gone away. I don't know the details of yours. Are there things that you were able to do with ARP ESSER that you're not going to be able to do moving forward, part A? And then part B, if there were, are there any of them that you are particularly sad to see go? Like, if you could wave a magic wand, you would continue them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate it. I'm proud that the former superintendent, Kelly Lyman, and the leadership team was able to really think about this in a strategic way, so that one, We weren't investing in FTEs that when the grant goes away, we're then having to reduce things that we just suddenly got used to. But having said that, we invested in high dosage tutoring, which we've now pursued with additional grants. And they've been successful so that we will be able to underwrite them into our budget and continue them because we know they're good for kids. I think we were used to a high level of professional learning that we're just going to have to be mindful and strategic in terms of making sure that we continue the same level of professional learning. We were able to take advantage of a lot of different programs, and we're spending down the ARP ESSER funds and will benefit from it as we return next year after the summer. Having to replace those funds, again, I think are doable, but will have to be a strategic decision in the future to make sure that we continue to live our core belief of growing educators through professional learning.
Okay, thanks. For my piece, and maybe not everybody on the council agrees with me, I think for people who pay a little bit of attention to our budget process and maybe come to town meeting, we, as Kathy knows, we occasionally see people who get sort of spooked seeing positions cut in the Board of Education budget, and you all always have to explain, no, this, these are positions that we have to reduce because we have fewer kids, et cetera. But there's a perception perhaps that could be created where the town's budget always looks like we're doing what Ryan calls service expansions, which is a budgetary way of saying we're spending new money on new things because there's new programming that we think is important. And I'm not saying that you're not doing it, but I would encourage you on my part to think to think in future years about whether there are opportunities to bring us a budget that has service expansions in it, or more service expansions in it that has an increased dollar amount, and that make us try to figure out how to make it work within our tax base. I know Ryan's ears are probably burning because it will make his job a little more difficult, but it's a really important part of the town to everybody who lives here, almost everyone who lives here. And I would say the vast majority of those folks don't, make a big distinction between the separation of powers between the town side and the education side in the budget. So I appreciate it. It's a great budget, and thanks for the information.
Thank you.
Okay, can I ask my questions? Can we go back to the spreadsheet? There we go. Tuition. I assume that is special education tuition,
Magnet school.
magnet school, and there's a decline, a significant decline.
Well, yes and no. Actually, I'm sorry. No, that is correct. That tuition is, I believe, a combination of both. It is both. I'm sorry.
is
So
both.
it's magnet and special education.
Okay, so special education is reimbursed in the following year, right? Your expenditure is reimbursed by the state,
Not 100%.
not 100%. So how do we get $166,000 reduction?
Yep. So it's a strategic use of our reserve funds. To Councilman Coleman's question before about the special ed reserves, we had a level in that account that was rather high. And so we strategically decided that we would apply some of those reserve funds to offset the tuition costs. But we also have declining numbers of students in these specialized programs. And so we know that it's important to make sure that we're responsive to our students and to our families. We're not always able to accommodate all of our learners, but it is a huge cost savings when we can figure out ways to build programs that are appropriate and specialized and keep them in the district. And so under Dr. Shamim Patwa's leadership, we've been able to keep that number relatively low. That's not a guarantee though, because we follow the PPT process and the recommendation of that team in special education. So it could change from year to year, but at present, we've been able to keep that number rather low.
Okay, this question is totally unrelated to that one. There was a period of time when we were talking about bringing in elementary and middle school students from neighboring towns. Has there been any further discussion of that?
I've not explored that at all. I am a fan of regional and choice schools. I know superintendents of small schools shouldn't say that, but I think that schools aren't one size fits all. And I think it's a great equity move when we think about regional opportunities. If enrollment continues to decline, that might be a good question to pose to the Board of Ed. Because we will have space available. And I know that people love our building, they love our programs. After our Eclipse events, I got quite a few calls and emails from educators in other towns that didn't celebrate the Eclipse quite as much as we did. And they commented on our programs and our support of teachers and students. And so we could probably easily fill those seats.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes, well, I'm sorry.
Mr. Sharn?
Yeah, just one, following up on your response to the mayor's question. We're improving in terms of inclusion. We're including more students, sending fewer students out. Is
That's
that-
correct.
Nevertheless, not to get to my previous question, we're okay to reduce the number of special ed teachers by one.
Yes, yes, we are. And again, it's based on IEPs, number of students that we have and plans. And so what
We would have more such students if we're including more, right?
right, as we are right now. And so we know as kids matriculate,
Yeah.
and so we have eighth grade students going to the high school, those numbers are always changing. And so as we did the rollover or roll up, if you will, we know that we can reduce the number of special ed teachers without impacting services.
I accept that and I just,
Less kids
yeah.
with IEPs.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
less students who need that service.
even though there are more students being included, it's,
As of right now, there
Yeah,
are,
okay.
right?
Could
So
you
it's
def-
already happening.
Could you define inclusion for me right now? I think there are two different definitions that are running through my head.
So we're an included district, which means that our priority is any student is best served in the general ed classroom. So if a student who has an exceptionality and has an identified exceptionality through the PPT process, we are always going to try to keep that child in the general education setting, then create programs that are outside of that. And I would say the highest level of supportive programs sometimes requires such specialized training that we can't provide that within the district. And that might lead to tuition costs to an outplacement. Right now, currently, we have less students than we've had previously in outplaced programs. But in addition to that, because of declining enrollment, we also just have generally less students with IEPs. And an IEP is an individualized education plan.
So fewer students are being included in classrooms because there are fewer students in need of that kind of inclusion.
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay, and that's just a demographic thing. The smaller the population, the smaller number of people with disabilities or whatever.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Does
again,
that help, Mr. Sharn?
yes, I just want to make sure that we're not getting to the balanced budget on the backs of kids with special needs.
no, and this is to Ben's point as well. If we needed it, I feel very comfortable and confident that the Board of Education would have supported and that ultimately town council would support it. This is a community that puts kids first and puts it at the center. The budget that we're proposing is supportive of all kids. It's based on what we need. It's not based on what we've had because we just are going to perpetuate the same model. And so using attrition, we took a deeper dive and looked at the number of students who have IEPs that are serviced under case managers, and that number is changing. It's declining. So we need less special education teachers, and it won't impact. But if it does, I'll be right back to the Board of Education, and we have contingency money that we'd simply hire that person to fill that role.
I would like to point out that it's a very unusual circumstance when the Board of Ed presents its budget to the town council and the town council wants them to add to it.
I
Only
haven't
in
heard that,
Mansfield.
but, I,
surprising.
Mr.
what, how
Keith-
much is the contingency? What did, you told us.
I would have
No,
to
you
ask
didn't.
Amanda.
Up.
$10,000 contingency,
But the reserve funds are.
but the reserve funds also have
Good.
additional funds.
Serve that purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, on the energy line there, it looks like a $23,000 savings, correct? Now, is that because we're not heating those two old buildings under your budget? Or is it because we're saving so much on the elementary school?
Would say it's a combination of those.
Yeah. Do you have those figures in the future? If
I can get them to you.
what's that? Okay, I'll ask for them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I believe the town must be paying to heat those elementary schools. But I must say, having spent half a day at Benton in the gymnasium, it was freezing and we're not heating them very well anyway. Okay, with that, I really want to thank you for answering all our questions and for presenting budget you have and giving us the quality of education that we expect.
Maybe before our guests leave, an earlier question that the deputy mayor asked, I guess made me think that this might be a good thing to say. I mean, it maybe goes without saying, but maybe it still bears saying. So aside from projecting the future, what future needs might be in terms of what, again, we in the municipal world would call service improvements, the Board of Ed may call it something else, but it's also important to note that we are, I would suspect, and the superintendent could correct me if I'm wrong, at some point, perhaps this budget, we're kind of achieving that leveling off period where the consolidation savings, we're not going to continue to see new savings on top of the savings we already saw. So in terms of staffing reductions and other areas of savings, this budget probably becomes like the new normal.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. And we've got to be careful that, I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat every budget year and achieve zero, as we have to be reflective of the needs of students and programs. And so it sets a new norm of where we are, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the budget continues to decrease or that we can offset obligated increase through enrollment declines and things like that. And so I think it is important to kind of reset. We've made the move, we've adjusted, we're seeing the new normal. And each year will be a new year that we'll look at enrollment, we'll look at attrition, but most importantly, and to the town council's point, and I know the Board of Education holds me accountable to this, are we providing the high level, high quality services and supports that our students need and have received in the past, and we'll continue to do that.
Just as a matter of, would you remind us about the minimum expenditure rules and about what happens if you raise the budget in regard to state funding?
I'm not sure it's raising. I think it's reduction, budget reduction. And so there's a safeguard. So budgets, school budgets cannot be reduced dramatically from year to year. And so I don't know what it is offhand. I think it's
Right,
about
okay.
2%. But we're nowhere in danger of that. And enrollment is one of the variables that allows us to do that without a penalty.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much again. I just would like to point out, I don't know whether, I didn't notice exactly when Mr. Lutrico joined us, but he has joined us. Mr. Shaken is having computer problems and he is trying to return. So, that's where we are right now. And who comes next?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board of Ed. So we're going to transition into discussion of shared services, which, again, very much interfaces with and is interconnected with the conversation you just heard or just had with the Mansfield Board of Ed. So we're going to start off with a discussion of facilities management and then transition into from there with a discussion of the Management Services Fund. While Bill Treach comes on up, Bill's been serving as our acting director. Bill is the assistant director or deputy director for facilities management. He's been serving in acting capacity while the director's been on leave. So I want to take a moment to personally thank Bill for stepping up. And you always do great work, Bill, but you're doing yeoman's work now and pulling double duty. And we just really, really appreciate that. And I know I speak for the Mansfield Board of Ed as well when I say that. So thank you for everything that you're currently doing. Facilities management is shared between the town and Mansfield Board of Ed. We'll get into more of the other items here after facilities when it comes to Management Services Fund. But our facilities, just to be clear, is split between Mansfield Board of Ed and the town. And the other items we're going to talk about later, it's actually a three-way split between the town, Mansfield Board of Ed, and Regional School District number 19. So thumbnail sketch before I turn things over to Bill. What you see here, this year-over-year 2% increase in the facilities management budget. That is, this is just reflective of the town's portion of the budget. So the Board of Ed, if we went back to slides Peter had up earlier, the Board of Ed's budget, or sorry, facilities is also built into the Board of Ed's budget. And I can't remember if it's a 50-50, 60-40 split, but it's, on the order of magnitude, roughly the same. So all that to say, this is, we'll call it half or thereabouts of the overall facilities budget when Board of Ed is brought into it. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Bill, and I'm going to let Maria advance the slides for you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present our budget to you tonight.
The mic.
Sorry.
The guy from facilities should know you have to talk into the
Yeah,
mic.
talk into the mic. Yep. Thank you for letting me come forward and give you my budget for tonight. If we could go to the next slide. So here I've been the operating, what it includes in our operating budgets, mainly going through the list here is just salary and maintenance for custodians, refuge, which is cost for trash removal, water and sewer, building maintenance services, building repairs, which includes sidewalks, rails, anything like that. Equipment can continue with AC units, lighting, air handlers, voice communications, alarm systems, monitoring services. And our budget also has in it the energy and fuels, computer software, building supplies, and custodial supplies to keep the buildings looking nice. Next. All right, on what I have learned as stepping into this role is how much things have increased in this last, as COVID started to end and the world started to wake back up. The cost of everything has increased tremendously. In our budget, we've kept things as tight as possible, but we've had increased cleaning costs of like 15% for cleaning supplies, paper towels, toilet paper, all that has gone up. Demand for services. I don't know if you've called for a repair service at your house or anything like that yet. Most costs for building services have gone up at least 20%. Increased in materials, to buy supplies, shingles, house, anything, 7 to 15%.
Could I ask for a clarification? It's not the demand that's increasing, but the cost of the services?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. So here I broke down some costs for the capital improvements for the projects that I have put forward to you for funding for next year.
We have continued to put money towards the library roof. We are doing this over years so that we can not bring a detriment of large costs when the roof fails. But it is at its point where we need to replace it. So we've decided to do this over a contribution time of, I think it was 3 years. I think is what we were looking at.
Yeah, it's multiple years. 3 sounds about right. I'd have to consult the budget book.
And then window replacement that we're looking at the library also. Next one is the animal control facility. This has lots of new interesting things that are coming along. The state has mandated that we need to upgrade our animal control facilities. So we've asked for $100,000 to be put aside so that we can start looking at architectural. That's great. Some architectural designs for the animal control shelter. At Public Works, we're looking at replacing some doors that are literally starting to fall off the hinges behind the truck bays. So we'd like to get some of those replaced. The next one is Mansfield Community Center repairs. The age of the building, we've had it for, I think, 22 years now.
20 years. It was
20 years?
Yep, 20 years in November.
So as you can see, some of the floors and carpets that have been there since the original time have starting to wear out. The gym floor is also another one that we're looking to resurface. There's been many changes that have come along with that. Now, pickleball is one of the big ones that have definitely been driving to happen at the community center. So the new lines would be striped into the floor. And if you can look at the floor, how yellow it looks. And if you ever get a chance, stop by the elementary school or look at middle school and you'll see how white the floors are. Over time with buildup of wax and treatments that we put on the floor, they become to age and yellow. So we're looking for money to resurface this back down and bring back the beautiful life that it could have. We're also looking at upgrading some of the shades that are original to the opening of the building. The next one is Discovery Depot of $65,000 to upgrade. We continued to upgrade. It was not, I should have included some pictures of stuff we've done too. Next time I'll do that. But these are cabinets that the kids use at daycare that we are continuing to upgrade and put in to replace. The air conditioning units are approximately 20 years old. Mini splits that are there, they are becoming outdated and need to be replaced. So we're looking to start replacing those. Town hall upgrades. We're still have rooms here at the town hall and a bathroom that we're looking to upgrade. You've been into the main ones. We've done some touch-ups there. We're also looking at replacing carpets and adding some more heating and air conditioning to rooms that are lacking in this kind of service. Next one is furniture. We're looking at $40,000 into the budget to replace furniture at the Mansfield Public Library, along with seating and chairs. A lot of what needs to be replaced there is older furniture during the old renovation that was done there. Townwide securities is the next one for $40,000. We're looking to do more upgrades for cameras, securities, alarm systems. We're looking at the public library, the town hall, and at senior center. The next one is Lions Park. We're looking to replace the roofs on the 2 buildings that are there. One's the pavilion that's up in the woods a little bit, and then the main Lions Park building. It's in need of new roof. We're gonna get rid of the skylights that are there too, so. The next one is Mansfield Middle School. As Mr. Dart said, you've got a very potential middle school that has a tremendous amount of space that is available for the kids and learning. We're looking this summer to increase the look of the school. We're hoping to get out to replacing the third floor flooring that is starting to fail and repaint the lockers so that this looks more like a modern school. So I'm looking for some flooring upgrades of about 350,000 there. Also during the boiler repair, there's a HVAC grant that we have applied for. And I don't think we've gotten results of that yet. We have applied for a HVAC grant for the Mansfield Middle School, which will include possible air conditioning to certain parts of the building and along with replacement of the boilers in the school there. And the reason I put the boilers on the list for this was the cost for repairs on these have gone up a lot as far as their age and their parts are starting to wear out. They may look good, but the parts are just wearing out on them. And they are making some new ones out there that are a little more energy efficient than these. And I want to thank all my staff that, my maintainers, my custodians are impeccable. I can't ask for a better group of people to take care of your guys' buildings. I mean, they are phenomenal. So kudos to all them for sure. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
I've often said that one of the problems in this town is that everything looks so good that nobody believes it needs to be fixed or replaced. Questions for Mr. Treach, Mr. Coleman?
Thank you, Bill, for your presentation. You did a good job for your first time. The floor at the middle school, has that been tested for asbestos?
Yes, it has.
So there's no surprises on that?
No surprises.
okay.
We've tested it and it has come back negative.
Very good. How old is that floor?
Over 25 years old.
Yeah, okay, so we kind of lucked out on that too. Good. If we take the doors off the DPW garage, is that building gonna fall down?
I hope not.
That building is in tough shape. I imagine we're gonna have to address that whole thing at some point. That is a steel building, correct?
Yes.
And it's beginning to, if I remember right, rust through in some spots?
There is some spots that are in need of repair that we will be looking at to replace some of the sheathing. We did do an upgrade a few years ago on this because of columns that were, I don't know, this was probably before you, not before me. They had to go back in and we re-supported some of the cement columns that were rotting in the bottom. So, but you are right.
Yeah.
It's aging buildings
Yeah.
in town. Yeah.
And things are falling apart. We can't wait until we get a new building for the doors. I mean, that'd be ideal, but apparently we can't in this case.
I don't think we can wait to replace the doors now.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Ms. Cotton?
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. I was looking at the slide that you had for the animal shelter, and if I'm remembering correctly, you wanted to allocate 100,000, was it, for design services?
Yes.
And given that, when are you looking at actually building a new building, or what is the goal?
So the goal is the state has mandated by 2025.
2029, I think.
29?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little more time, but
To replace and update the animal shelter. So I would think within the next 3 years.
yeah. I would say, so what Bill's referring to, and I don't have the the CGS reference in front of me, but I believe it's a new law that I know it went into effect October 1 of 23, so this past October. I don't know for sure offhand if it was the legislative session that immediately predated that, or if it was 2 legislative sessions earlier. So I'll say it was either the session in 22 or 23. A number of sort of animal shelter or animal welfare provisions or a law that addressed a number of issues went into effect. So I can't quote the exact specifics. I know there are dimensional requirements, I think specifically for the dog kennels, perhaps, yeah, that need to be met by the 2029, January 1, 2029 date. But beyond that, so while 2029 is, 5 years away, the reality is other areas that we are technically in compliance right now, like temperature requirements, which I believe are 55 to 80 degrees, and then quarantine areas for dogs and cats, specific physical requirements that you have to meet. We are, we are doing what we need to be in compliance with the law, but the space is not adequately set up for that. I think anybody, I know Ms. Cotton has been to the shelter. I know other council members have. To poke a little bit of fun at what the mayor said about what a great job we do maintaining the warts that we have. There's no covering this one up. I mean, this one, yeah, there's nothing you can do to dress up our animal control facilities. So, so this year it would be all about design. I would say my hope would be, inside of 3 years, we might be opening a new shelter. It definitely needs to be, I think, on a fast track. I think anybody who's been there sees that it's woefully outdated, it's undersized, and we can do a lot better than just skating by on our legal minimum requirements.
So
I
we're hoping
absolutely
by-
agree with you on that. I got 2 cats from there and visited several times, and it is an embarrassment. Ms. Cotton, have you finished your question?
What I was asking is, we're hoping around 2025, 26 to have a new building up, or leaning more towards 2029?
So when we go through the design process, so closer to the former, I guess, without being too specific about a date. So you have those 2 kind of binary options. If you said 25, 26 versus all the way out to 29, I would say I would certainly hope for more so the former. So obviously, when you go through a design process and you get cost estimation, that's illuminating, right? You're going to get a lot of information about what the actual costs are to construct the thing that you think you need. And so while we have some, reasonably good back of the envelope kind of internal working numbers of what we think this is going to be, until you design the thing and you work with a professional to do that, you don't know everything you need to know. And then obviously that cost, because we all know we're going through the budget season. We know that some costs we can't just pay out of pocket. Some things have to be bonded for, et cetera, or other sources of funding, like year-end surplus funds or things like that. We don't necessarily know exactly what the timeline is or what the funding package or approach would be until we know, after completing design, what the cost is.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Bruder, following Mr. Shaken.
Thank you, Mayor. Am I remembering correctly that this was just recently had a new generator, and would that, I guess let me just let you answer that first.
Yes, I mean, it was a repurposed generator that we actually moved from middle school when they got their new generator. I
Right.
took the small generator from there, reconditioned it. And because the animal shelter had no backup power, we moved it over there and repurposed it.
Okay, so if we do redesign, we would be looking to maybe save some costs by continuing to use that. I don't think there's been any issues that I've heard from the repurposed generator, correct?
Correct.
And then I might be remembering this incorrectly, but there's a facility study maybe in the works or being discussed. And how does building a new animal shelter here fit into the overall plans for our facilities? I don't know if there was a discussion at one point of moving the animal shelter, and I guess will that and this design incorporate some of those thoughts of making sure that it's consistent with whatever the overall possible facility study that we're doing, and I guess will it be at the same location?
Yeah, that's a great question. Gives me an opportunity to speak to that. So thank you, Mr. Bruder. Yeah, so the animal control facility was one of the dozen or so facilities that was looked at or reviewed from a programmatic use standpoint as part of what I keep calling the Phase 1 Municipal Facilities Needs Assessment that we worked with TSKP on. So it was part of the original scope of that project. And so I think the short answer or shortest answer I can give you is that as we've progressed and as we've, looked at different options, and obviously we're going through kind of a community engagement phase right now to hear from the community and what the community values, what the community's interests are. I think for me personally, I think others are in the same boat, but I'll just speak for myself. While originally I was thinking of this facility as being one of, I'll say, potentially a number of facilities that would kind of be addressed as part of a larger package, I think this one really does bear pulling off. One, because it's a smaller scope, not insignificant number of dollars for sure, but compared to what the investment would be, say, for a new town hall or a senior center, a public works facility, it certainly is a far cry from that. And it is a project that I think lends itself to being pulled aside, moved up, something that we could act on a little faster. Still got to do it methodically, still have to do it thoroughly with all the right design. But I think it is something that we could, shave off some of the time frame to move on it faster if the council supports doing that. And then I guess the last piece you asked about location. While we have, as part of the first phase or Phase 1 needs assessment we did with TSKP, talked a little bit about possible locations, alternative locations. I think ultimately where we've settled is we are well served by the current location, because while many people, including myself, love dogs, for instance, dogs can make some noise, and you want, you're mindful of putting that, that population or those animals in a more densely populated area. And so that and the proximity, the adjacency with DPW, we've seen certainly for a variety of reasons, including public safety, quite frankly, but other advantages and conveniences of having this particular facility practically within arm's length of our public works facility. There's value to that. So I think it's somewhat secluded location in terms of residential population, proximity to our public works department, and some other considerations have led us to think that it makes sense, unless the council, of course, wants to suggest something different, or you feel strongly you want to do something different, to basically pursue a new structure on the same property.
Yeah, no, I agree with, I appreciate all that information. I think also, as you were talking, it makes sense given the state statute changes, that it sounds like we need to be in compliance with a certain time frame, 2029, that we don't attach this to something larger and more grand scale, like all the other facility buildings you listed. And I fully support, having been in there and talked to some of the staff, just more in a personal note, but just that it definitely could use a new building. So I'm glad to see that we're getting this started. And when I walk my dog in the early morning, even over at the middle school, I can hear some of the residents at the animal shelter, waking up and stuff. So I think the location is good as it is. So thank you for the answers.
You're welcome.
Mr. Shaken.
Thanks. So I just I'm gonna sort of grow the snowball down the hill a little bit, and I apologize in advance. But so Ryan, the idea is that we are going to, in roughly this location, build an animal shelter, and then next, the idea is that because it's now there, theoretically in a couple years, we're going to replace the public works facility also in that location. And so I
Um,
know that's beyond where we've made any decisions as a council. Certainly, we're waiting on this community engagement, et cetera. And so I don't have any disagreement that we need a new animal shelter facility. I guess I was under the impression from the conversations that we had had initially that there was no feasible, real way to have a new public works facility without the addition of utilities, water and sewer, for the environmental requirements for truck washing. And so now we're talking about a new public works facility, animal shelter in that location, and a multi-million-dollar sewer and water extension project too.
You asked the easy questions. No, so I guess starting with the animal control facility and the value of having it be proximate to or adjacent to public works. I suppose I could have qualified a little bit by saying, obviously, over the course of next year, when we go through the design phase for the animal shelter, while it continues to be my belief that this is going to be the best spot for any future new build for the animal control shelter for the reasons I stated. As that timeline progresses, we will hopefully have reached some key decision points when it comes to the future goals that the council has for other facilities, including public works. So there are scenarios, I suppose I'll say, where the public works garage or facility could be relocated. I think that there are a number of reasons, and if the Department of Public Works was here and kind of explained in more detail to the council their business model, you'd have the benefit of that understanding of why relocating or moving from where they are poses a number of challenges. So I wouldn't say that it's off the table. I think that there are a number of factors that make a compelling case for any new public works facility, any major renovation or replacement of existing structures that we have on that site, that ultimately, if you fast forward 5-10 years, that is still the location of our public works facility. Now, you brought up vehicle washing, which is in fact a need, and it is in fact something that we've talked about, that specific function, either by necessity or by convenience and strong preference, having that connected to municipal water, sewer. And so we have talked, at least at a staff level, about locations where a specific dedicated vehicle wash bay, including existing town property, I should say, without being too specific here, where that facility could be to serve our public works department, our bus garage, and other municipal vehicles. So the point I'm trying to make is that particular function, which is important, and you were right to say the current site, the current public works garage site, does not support. There are other geographically advantageous places in town that would serve public works with a vehicle wash bay that doesn't need to be on that property.
So essentially then it sounds like if there is a desire to make sure that the animal shelter is an animal control office is not by itself in the middle of the woods, that there's some other town facility near it for public safety reasons, whatever, safety of staff, etc., that we would likely then be so we would basically need to abandon any thought of some kind of larger, and perhaps the ability for us to gain some kind of economy of scale in the construction of a co-located public safety and public works complex somewhere in town.
Potentially, I think, again, just to go back to, so the design phase for the animal control facility, I think that, a lot of the focus of that will be on the actual design of the building, right, of the structure. And that design, well, to an extent, you would potentially shape a design or approach a design differently, clearly with one parcel versus another. I think the goal here would be, obviously, we're going to have conversations with whoever we're working with for design services and kind of explain to them where we are, that we think this is the likely site. So, put those cards on the table, but at the same time, again, we'll probably say, but let's proceed if we can with a design that if at some future, not like way down the road, I mean like months from now, it seems like we want to rethink where the animal control shelter goes, that all the work we've put into the design up to that point, it's 100% transferable, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Then are you finished or did you freeze? Okay. Other questions? Mr.
Yes.
Keebner?
Okay. There may be, actually, the first one is great, this one. Not the first one, this one. The new roof and so forth. It's funny that the down at Lyons, you also want to redo the roofs there. And the one building we're getting rid of has what I think is the roof we want to do, a metal roof. Are we going to put metal roofs on these things? Could we? Is that the right thing to do? Are they worth what you pay for them versus this, the fancier new architectural shingle? Or do we do neither of those?
I mean, the library has a combination of both. So it has a flat roof in the center of it. I know most people haven't been up there. I have.
Yeah, I'd like to go sometime.
But there's mostly shingles on probably 65% of it. And then the rest of it is a flat rubber membrane roof. You can get 30 years out of a shingle and a flat roof. If you're looking to do more than that, you would have to change the structure of the library in order to put a metal roof on it. So it's your desire.
Okay, that's fine. If it's not appropriate there, then it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
But I would hope that we'd put a metal roof, if that makes sense, or at least pursue it and maybe pay a premium, assuming it's worth it, for a metal roof at Lions Park.
Yeah, we can pursue that. They do make 50-year shingles, which is
Right,
most
that's what I'm understanding.
most
Yeah.
metal roofs are
50 to 70.
still only came 50 to 75 year.
Yeah.
So you're getting the asphalt shingles to be almost as long as the metal roofs.
Mhm. That's what I was starting to wonder. I'm curious, the community center repairs. When was the last time the gym was done, a resurface? It never has been done?
Never been done
Remarkable.
since it's
Okay.
opened.
All right. The Mansfield Discovery Depot upgrades. $65,000 for next year. What was it last year?
I'd
In your
have to
head,
look.
do you have a sense of it?
No, I
Do
don't.
you have a sense of it? Just a sense.
Yeah, we'd have to check. I know we had a big year when we did the roof.
Right. That
But
was several $100,000.
yep. And that one, the original approved budget for like the capital budget, when we bid it out, we had to get more funds. But no, I don't know, unless I know we have a finance director that's probably working feverishly back there to answer this question. And if I talk long enough and slow,
Just a general
enough,
idea.
we will be happy to
Bill,
furnish that
is it your
information.
sense that it's more work coming than has happened last year? Or is it about the same?
No, it's about the same. These are major repairs inside. You fix the roof, other structures. The rest of it seems to be fine. We've upgraded the boilers the year before too. We made good improvements there. These are more internal into the classrooms, trying to nuts and bolts of what's going on there.
Yeah. Speaking of boilers, the boilers at the middle school, those are the cogen ones in the outside building, or is it a different set?
Nope, that's in that outside building
And
there.
how old? I thought those are actually quite new.
They're reaching 20.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
It seemed like that school had electric heat yesterday.
It did when it was built in 1969.
Yeah. On the animal shelter.
Just keep going.
Which I might have started with, but we went off on other things. The animal shelter. What is the square footage now and approximately?
Like 500 square feet
Okay. I thought it was, I've been in there
or
once.
600,
many
something
years
like that. Yeah.
And what is your sense, anybody's sense of what will be required or most appropriate for us when we do build out another one?
When you say, what you mean in terms of size or
Mhm.
so careful putting this out there because I know when I say something couched and all, it's like, oh, the town manager
just
said
asking-
definitively
no, I'm
promised.
just
would-
asking for a seat of the pants.
Yeah, no, so when we did our needs assessment with TSKP phase one, I believe their recommendations, and it probably wasn't this exact number, it might have been this exact, or it might have been just in the ballpark, but it was about 2,500 square feet. So not a huge facility, but based on how small we have right now, that's somewhere around 4 times the size.
Okay. So that is one thing that totally jumped out at me on your budget, $100,000 for really a very simple building. Fine engineering, but it's a really simple building overall. And I would expect that there are, and maybe that's just the outside, and I sure is a round number, but I've got to think that even the planning part of this could be a lot less, especially when this is not a new invention. There are many of these. They're not sophisticated buildings. Granted, they have air conditioning and heating and plumbing. We have a flat lot for it. I just think we should really be looking for ways that, you know, this doesn't have to be a carefully designed, aesthetically designed structure. I'm as interested in design and aesthetics as anybody else, but I just feel like, yikes, $100,000 for the design for a 2,500 square. This is a house sort of a size. $100,000 for the design and engineering for a house just feels like a bit much to me. So anyway, I would hope that we can find something, you know, a little less generous on that.
And just to be, clear on that, so we request an amount of money that we certainly think or hope would be, you know, a ceiling for the total cost, and you bid out the work, and if it's less, it's less, and everybody's happy about that. I would also, though, just say, and again, the first phase, this was high level, what I would call high level cost estimation, you know, not back of the envelope, you know, qualified experts and cost estimators involved, but I believe TSKP thought that, you know, this could be well north of $1 million and closer to $1.5 million. So the 100,000, while I agree, it's not insignificant. By the time you outfit something, you know, a specialty building with all the things it needs, we're probably looking at well under 10% of the overall project cost. And we usually, as a rule of thumb, you know, at least in my experience, somewhere between 7 and 10% is kind of your design fee.
Okay, that still amazes me that it's even $1.5 million for what I believe will be or should be a simple structure. Again, that's you could literally go to another town in Connecticut and get plans for this thing. So it's amazing that it would cost that much. That part of it, and frankly, the second part too, the building, when I expect, sorry, Bill, that the town might have something to do with building it as well, at least, you know, some of the foundation work or grading or whatever. There's one item on the first page, the shared services budget summary. Maybe this isn't Bill's area, but the energy conservation management, you certainly know a lot about that, right?
Some, yes.
Yeah. So that struck me as something that is a place where you invest money and you get money back. So my question is, are we investing enough money in there, and or are there other places where we should be investing money so that we can save money? And maybe a roof certainly is one of those kinds of things, but this is another. But two questions related to that. One, is this enough, or is this a compromise on your part? And number two, what are some other places where we might invest money to save money?
I mean, some of it is already in the works. I know Ryan, and it's things that get slipped behind, like the Eversource or the solar fields that we're looking to put at the landfill. So that's one project that I know it's been hanging there for a while, but we're hoping that it still happens. So we're constantly looking for energy savings things. I've replaced most of the light fixtures here in the town hall. We did it at the fire stations. We've upgraded to all LED. We continue to do that. It's at the point now, I think Mansfield is in order to make a decision beyond that is to add more solar where we can add solar. We're looking for our, investment there at the landfill. I'm hoping that it comes true.
And the landfill, the solar project there, certainly that's going to be by far and away the single largest, green energy project that we've done. But we do continue, as Bill alluded to, where existing, rooftops can accept solar. We've done that. And certainly when it comes to swapping out, bulbs for more energy efficient bulbs, making those transitions to LED and those sorts of things. Those are more marginal, nominal, savings, but they do add up, energy saving measures. Yep.
Do we have the software that you like? I mean, must go to conferences or read trade journals, and is there a better software that we could be using that would give us an edge?
No, every facility has different software. Have one of the most sophisticated that we can have. It's comparable to any of the top names that are out there.
Great.
Medicine, Janus, Train. We use Allerton, which is it's a building automation. We have most of all our buildings on that.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, I would like to alert people to the time.
Just a clarification on the solar, landfill solar project. That's going to be a lease arrangement with a $50,000 or $55,000 a year payment to the town.
Yeah, correct. So we'll receive revenue for essentially it's a land lease. Yep. So the solar will receive what amounts to a rent. Yep. So it won't actually, our electric bills, so to speak, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can have it sort of directly offset your consumption, or you can, which is essentially a riskier proposition, because then the concern is if your projected production, your actual production doesn't line up with your projected production, you might not realize the revenue source or the cost offsets that you thought. So we, at the recommendation of our solar or green energy consultant, Titan Energy, they steered us in the direction of the lease. So we're not receiving, we receive a negotiated amount, essentially a lump sum, and then there's an annual escalator tacked onto that. So we don't have to worry about the future production, the actual production, not keeping pace with what our projected production was.
Thank you.
What's the holdup on the project?
Oh, well, we actually, I'm going to get it looks like a briefing, a more comprehensive update on the status of the, it's a T&D study, but basically it sounds like in layperson's terms, we've crossed a milestone. Things are starting to move again. And just as of today, emails are flying around about scheduling a meeting to discuss the project status and the next steps. So, we're well into that. I think it was estimated it could be 18 months from when that delay initially happened. I don't have a calendar in front of me to say how long exactly it's been, but I think things are hopefully, knock on wood, going to be moving now.
I think the delay was partially because of the cost of the cabling from the field to the road.
The interconnection piece, because there's not phase 3 power right there. And so I think at the end of the day, it basically boiled down to, the utility has a right to do like an economic impact assessment and make sure that the financials are worth the while.
Thank you. Any further questions for facilities and Mr. Treach? Well, I see nobody, so thank you once again, and thank you very much for filling in, because I know this is a huge responsibility, and you've had lots of learning experience with the new school, as far as I can gather. Next up is finance.
So we're going to shift gears into the management services fund. We'll start off, Maria is going to take it from here and kind of give the council an orientation to what this fund is set up to do. And then we'll do a breakout, all the different elements that are part of the management services fund.
It says shared finance. So are we doing, what's happened to shared finance?
Yep, that's one of the elements.
It's one of the elements. Okay.
Yeah, one of the 3. Yep.
Good. All right.
All right. So our management services fund is an internal services fund. It largely has essentially programs or services that are really administrative in nature or support the operation. So that includes things like shared financial management. So essentially the accounting and payroll function, budgeting function of finance. It includes our IT department. It also includes our energy. It includes things like our copier services, postage, things of that nature. Let's see. So in terms of our energy that is included in this fund, it's our fuel, it's electricity, it's our various forms of heating, street lighting, equipment, and contracted services related to those items.
Hey, nobody can hear you if you don't use your microphone.
Sorry, I was just having difficulty advancing the slide.
Oh, sorry. I thought there was a conversation happening.
No. All right, great, thank you. So for our shared financial management services, we currently provide those services to a total of 6 entities through a number of contracts for service. That includes providing service to the Mansfield Public Schools, Regional School District 19, the Eastern Highlands Health District, the Mansfield Discovery Depot, and the Downtown Partnership. Those other entities do provide us with revenue for the service that we are providing to them. This has been a longstanding arrangement with a number of these entities dating back to the 1980s. This really is, relatively speaking, a status quo budget, with the exception of we do have some junior staff members who will be receiving step increases in addition to the general wage increase in the upcoming fiscal year. And as I mentioned, our shared information technology department is also reflected in the management services fund. We have been sharing IT services. This was the last of our shared services that was consolidated around 2007. We are providing IT services to those same entities that we spoke of just on the previous slide. And similarly, that is reflected in various contracts for services. And those entities are also contributing to the management services fund. This is also very much a status quo budget. This department also has a number of junior staff members that are eligible for step increases. So the salary line items will be going up in that regard this coming year. Another trend that we have been seeing is a lot of our sort of subscription-based software systems are increasing at about 5% a year. And that is something we are seeing across the board.
The IT are all administrative, not educational, as far as the schools, correct?
Correct. For this particular fund.
Yeah.
So we didn't put in a slide here for discussion and questions, but we're at that point. Before we open it up, I guess just maybe real quick to go back. Let's see if I can get there. I guess this works. So I don't know that this is I'm perhaps not at all a cause for confusion. Maybe every member of the council has this clear in their mind, but I remember this question coming up, if not last year, the year before. A council member asked me, but wait a second, didn't we already do finance? Because you'll recall when we did the general government night, there was finance related tallies. So just and Maria touched on this, but when we say shared finance here, or when we say finance here, we're talking about shared finance. So again, the fund accounting, kind of general financial management piece, that's the part that's shared amongst these entities. There are town-specific finance functions like the revenue collection office, like the assessing office, that obviously our boards of education have nothing to do with. So just want to make sure you understand that's why you see finance as a cost item or as an expenditure showing up in multiple presentations, multiple budgets.
I would assume that every agency that we share finance with would also have a finance line in their budget because they have to pay for it too.
Yep. There are offsets revenues that we receive. Yep.
Yep. Any further questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I was much more excited about energy management as energy management until I heard it's really just usage. Can we change that name to energy usage? Unless that's inaccurate. I don't think management sounds accurate to me.
Yeah.
What is the distinction you're making, Mr. Kiefner?
When you buy gasoline for your car or electricity for your house, do you call it energy management?
No, but if I changed the system by which I generate electricity, I do. That's management.
But they're talking here about, they're talking here about fuel, electricity and so forth. This is unless this is actually about managing this stuff, it just seems like this is an expense out for buying this resource. Is that true? Is that what it is? Isn't it an expense for buying fuel, for buying gas, for buying whatever it may be?
On the expenditure side is obviously we have revenues coming in. I don't know if Amanda, if you want to say more about.
Or is because this is a fund, it's income? So,
I mean, I would hazard a guess. I could be way off. It obviously long predates me. I would wager that the term management in the energy management piece is probably just a manifestation of the fact that we call it the Management Services Fund, and the word management was kind of already in there. But
I would agree with Ryan on that. And we do pay all of the utilities out of this budget. And again, all of those entities pay in from their budgets into this fund to cover those energy costs. So it is usage.
But I do appreciate what you're saying, that, I mean, certainly, and if the council so wishes, I'm not aware of any reasons why, like, this is statutorily prescribed. We probably could call it the Shared Energy Consumption Fund or something.
yeah, energy consumption. Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, who negotiates with which vendor for gasoline, for example, or fuel
Want
oil?
to speak to that?
That would be a combined venture with facilities and finance. And we do have a vendor that we use to assist us with going out to bid for those services and selecting the best vendor based on the prices that are submitted through bids.
So that vendor is paid for out of this fund or out of facilities fund?
That would be out of this fund.
Out of this fund. So there is a sense that the purchasing is managed by this fund.
That is true.
I think we're wordsmithing here, actually.
I agree. I'm just trying to get clear who's got what. I taught a class in bureaucracy today, and I'm just trying to figure out which element fits where. Merely for clarification, I have no problem with Mr.
I don't know
Keith.
what the title should be, but I don't like management only because it makes it sound like it's a software program that figures out, well, where is the best place to send this, send that, take this in? Do I use oil or gas or whatever? So that's all. So this is a dummy question. All of these things like can you go to this page?
IT?
When I look at this one, Region 19, that's money that's coming from Region 19. And someone asked, is that administrative? It's not for student stuff. It's not student access to the internet, the library using the internet.
That is not, they
Actual-
pay for their own hands-on IT person at the region to be interacting with the students on that level. This would be our director of IT who is paid for out of this fund, their contribution to that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shaken, did you take your hand down?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions for on shared services? Seeing none, I think we can move on. Have we covered item 3, discussion of proposed budget and council questions?
I believe we've been fielding questions as we go. If there are any last questions,
that's-
happy to entertain them.
That's what I
Oh.
thought too, so.
Just to put my
Mr.
mind
Sharon.
at ease, if we could ask the superintendent, the number of kids on IEPs this year and next year, just point of information.
Sure, we'll gather that data.
Okay, any other questions for the town manager? All right,
Can I raise another quick flag?
sure.
That's why my hand's been coming up and down. Just specific to the middle school boiler replacement, which I'm assuming is a fossil fuel, oil or gas burning piece of equipment, and sort of related to Chris's line of questioning around energy usage and clean energy. Could you have just a flag for follow-up, whether we've done any research into, as we are looking to replace some of these larger fossil fuel burning, heating infrastructure things or vehicles or whatever, what consideration we've given to eliminating the use of fossil fuels going in the heat pump direction, going in the electric vehicle direction, et cetera?
Will do.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Well, then,
The middle school is heated on natural gas, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
And there was a huge capital expenditure at one point to get the natural gas there. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
piped in. I mean, I know Bill left, but that is my understanding that it's comes in off the street essentially. Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Cotton,
Yes, can you tell me when we'll be looking at the areas, for instance, the municipal vets rep? Which portion of the this process will we deal with that?
So when you say the municipal vets, you mean like our municipal agent for veteran services, or are you talking about dollars that we allocate to?
Dollars that we allocate for a municipal veterans representative, can we flag that? And
Sure, we can revisit. I think perhaps the answer to your question lies in a couple different areas in terms of, the human services director being our town. I'm not sure if it's the municipal veterans agent or what the right term is, but functionally that's what we're talking about. And then of course there's, the grants to outside agencies of which the council can decide at a later date once, the actual bottom line appropriation is approved. What, if any, grant awards, obviously with recommendations from the Human Services Advisory Committee, but what outside groups, including those that perhaps focus on veteran services, will be funded this year. So those would be two areas, but we can circle back to that under flagged items if you'd like.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
any further?
Just since we're on the subject of veterans, what is the tax relief that veterans are eligible for in the town of Mansfield on either personal property, motor vehicles, or real estate?
And if our finance director wants to speak to that, or we can certainly come prepared to. We'll come to the flagged items tonight with that information.
All right, thank you.
All right. Just to remind everybody that the budget is available online. It's on the front page of the town's website. There's also a site that's budget information, but if you want to really look at the budget, you want to go to the budget book at cleargov.com, they're both available on the front page. Our upcoming meetings are April 22nd. We have a discussion of the flagged items, followed on the 25th by a discussion and perhaps the adoption of a budget. If we don't do it on the 25th, we will continue on the 29th. Those three meetings are at 6 p.m. I would remind people that the Region 19 budget goes to referendum on May 7th. And turnout for that referendum is always very low. So I would encourage people to find out what the budget is and to vote on the region-wide budget, the bottom line budget. It's not just Mansfield's share, it's the whole thing. And then there will be a public information session on May 8th to present what the council has adopted, followed by our annual town meeting on May 14th. Always a very interesting event where the public gets to speak its mind. I am reminded that there are local recreation ball game conflicts on the 29th, so we need to be we need to be ready on the 25th. Okay,
I'm hearing some feedback on not to have public hearings on the night of a basketball game too.
well,
I know some things can't be avoided, but that one's floating around.
all right. We'll do what we can. Next item is a motion to adjourn. Does somebody want to move?
We adjourn.
Mr. Kiefner moves, Mr. Coleman seconds. All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. Thank you. See you soon.